Welcome to Road to Recovery.
Welcome to Road to Recovery, Advocacy and Insights for Trucking Accidents by Sagi Shaked. Sagi is founder of Shaked Law Personal Injury Lawyers and is ranked as one of the top 100 trial lawyers in the United States by the American Trial Lawyers Association. With a wealth of experience in personal injury, wrongful death, and complex litigation cases, he passionately advocates for victims and he has recovered multi-million-dollar settlements and damages for his clients. I'm Evan Mack. In today's episode, we're looking at truck crashes in construction zones. Sagi, welcome back, sir.
Thank you for having me.
This is a very interesting topic, Sagi. What construction zones are most hazardous for large trucks that maybe than normal roadways?
Yeah, that's a very good question. What we see in construction zones is sometimes there are what we'll call them tight spaces or sudden lane shifts when you're driving, uneven pavements. I think we've all, as you're driving on the highway or streets, encountered either a tight space, a lane shift, or uneven pavements. But when you have, one of these 18-wheelers that's loaded, weighing 80,000 pounds, it's different, especially in a tight space. They're trying to maneuver around. And the construction zones really, sometimes they don't account for it. They account for vehicular traffic, but they forget that there's more than just a regular vehicle. There's actually trucks running through. And so if trucks are going to go through the area, they need to account for it. They need to have a maintenance traffic plan. And a lot of times they don't. And that's what causes a lack of visibility for the truck driver. There's no shoulders to escape on, and they're stuck in a predicament. So they're a little different, and they're hazardous for these large trucks. So the construction company can be on the hook in some situations.
Basagi, what work zone factors like lane shifts, narrow shoulders, or inadequate signage can contribute to serious accidents?
So let's look at, let's say, poor signage, for example. If the signs are up too late, that causes a problem for the truck, and you're going to have a catastrophe happen. Or if the signs are not visible, let's say you have a nighttime construction, because a lot of times they do construction at nighttime. And if the signs are not visible from a distance, right, you need to have them at a distance to give everybody ample time to stop, including truck drivers. That can cause confusion, and that can cause people to have bad perception reaction time. Not everyone's like Superman who can react on a dime. The average person, at least the accident reconstruction experts say, it takes 1.5 seconds to react.
Wow.
And when you have a truck, again, you can't stop it on a dime. So there has to be clear signage. Another thing could be confusing detours or lane changes. That could be a problem as well. We talked about inadequate lighting at nighttime during construction. So really, there's really no margin for error, because you have trucks, they can clip workers, they can clip the barricades. And you got to take this into account, that I looked up the stat. The work zones account for over 30,000 injuries and 700 fatalities annually in the U.S. And that's involving commercial vehicles. So imagine, how bad it is and how dangerous it is for people working in the work zone, and then people going in the work zone. So when trucks are there, it could be a combination of a truck or a construction company at fault. There's all different variables there.
Do construction zones have specific traffic laws or reduced speed limits for trucks? And if so, how are they enforced?
Yeah, so whenever they're doing a construction site and it's on a roadway, they have to get that approved by the government, usually the city government or the county government. They'll get that approved, and they create what's called an MOT, which is a maintenance of traffic plan, and that plan is approved. Now, that plan will usually call for having reduced speeds, and then, the police will double the fines. If you, sort of like in a school zone, you can't speed, you're going to get double the fine. Same thing in a construction site, because it's dangerous. And, the trucks have to follow a very strict signage or lane restrictions. So if they're not given those lane restrictions, that could be a cause of action against the construction company. The problem is, the police can't be at every single construction site. And so when you have sometimes trucks barreling through these construction sites and there's no police presence, that's a problem. They may have camera presence, but I don't know if they're giving out tickets like that. But yeah, if you violate that, you're subject to double the fine if you're a truck driver. So hopefully they won't do that, so we don't have crashes on the road, but that's expecting a lot out of people.
How can even a moment of distraction lead to disaster when a truck passing through a work zone?
So we've all been through work zones. As you're driving through a work zone, imagine, these lanes shrink.
Yep.
And if you have a 1 foot difference, or if you're, doing what we talked about on the break, you're driving and you're looking at the phone, you can cause, a crash. You go into a barricade, or you go into an individual
Mm.
that's someone that's working there, a worker or some equipment, and you knock off some equipment. Um, One distracted glance can cause a fatal mistake. And I've had those cases where it's one mistake that causes someone to die. We had a crash where they're laying the on the highway, they're putting down the reflectors. You see, whenever you're driving between
Yep.
lanes, there's reflectors. And so as they're laying the reflectors, they're supposed to protect. I have two of these cases actually going on right now. They're supposed to protect the trucks as the people are laying them down. And they're also supposed to let the public know which lane to merge in as they're doing it. And so one of the cases we had was a motorcycle rider, and it was beyond confusing. Even the police officer who investigated this crash, we settled the case a long time ago, but the motorcyclist rider was confused as to which way to go. Does he go right or does he go left?
Hmm.
And what they should have done was just have all the traffic go in one direction, so you don't have to make that split second decision.
Right.
And in that scenario, unfortunately for the motorcycle rider, it was a fatality. We have another scenario where, again, they didn't put up the proper signage to let the driver know which way to go, right or left. And it was too late. Our driver smashed into the back of a moving construction site when they were putting the reflectors in the road. So
Wow.
very dangerous when they have, trucks, reflectors, or construction sites, and they don't give people the adequate warning.
You spoke about the bad road signs, and can what can that make these construction companies liable though for an accident like the accidents you kind of described?
Yeah, and you absolutely. It's a great question, and they absolutely can be liable because, again, if they don't follow the maintenance of traffic plan and a crash occurs, then they're going to be responsible and on the hook for what happened. We have one going on right now where there's a big truck who's moving across a 5 lane highway and literally not going with the traffic, going across the traffic without anybody. And these things don't move fast because this is like a big tractor that's like a crane operator basically, and it's moving across traffic. And imagine someone's driving 55, 65 miles an hour
Yeah.
with no warning that a big crane is moving across the lanes. And they weren't able to stop in time because there was no warning. We have it on video. It's maybe we'll do it on one of the next episodes once the case resolves,
Yeah.
or we go to trial. We'll play it, and you can really see what I'm talking about. Why construction companies have to comply with their MOT that they're telling the government they're going to do. So in that case, if they had proper signage, if they had certain lanes closed, or tell people which way to go, they wouldn't have been negligent, or they would warn people, they wouldn't have been negligent. Um, the engineer on that case is going to have some, questions to answer that I think are going to be really difficult as to why and how they dropped the ball there, because my client's life was catastrophically changed and horrifically changed, all because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. They had the plan. They knew what they were supposed to do, but they didn't follow it. So, and that happens a lot. So they absolutely can be liable. And don't just think it's just the truck or the company. It's the company driving, meaning it can be the construction site and the construction company and the engineer, and they usually have a lot of insurance to protect people from this type of situation, because it does happen.
What about government entities? Can an injured driver ever bring a claim against the city or state if an unsafe work zone conditions are cause a crash?
And your questions are getting real good here. So that's a tricky answer, because some states have what they call sovereign immunity laws and some states don't. So it really will depend on what state you're in. So if it's a governmental planning issue, there's really, every state is different on how they look at these things. So tricky question to answer. It'll be a state by state decision to make. So sometimes the city outsources these things to contractors, so the contractors can be on the hook. And if you do have a claim against the city or the county or the state, there are deadlines you have to follow, and they're strict. Every state is different. For example, in Florida, if you're going after the state, county, or city, or any type of governmental entity, you have to put them on notice within the first 6 months of the claim happening, and you can't sue them during that 6-month period. You have to wait. And then there are other rules you have to follow. And for example, New York is completely different. I think you have to put them on notice within 90 days. And if you don't, you forever waive your rights. So whatever state you're in, make sure the lawyer that you're hiring knows the laws when you're suing a governmental entity. So it's tricky to say whether the government will be responsible. It just really depends on the specific state that you're in.
Are injuries in construction zone crashes often more severe in your experience? And if so, why is that?
Yeah, so, sometimes they can be more severe. I mean, we've had the gamut from very bad trucking wrecks to very bad construction wrecks. So it really depends. I mean, you can have workers where you have a person who's, again, looking at that phone. You just see a lot of these accidents. They're driving and you're looking at the phone, get distracted, and you run over people, and they really don't have anywhere to go because they're stuck on a very narrow construction site. Or, worker's foot could be run over. Machinery can be hit and smash into people. Rear end collisions are common because people don't slow down because maybe there's not enough signage or the right type of signage. So construction car crashes or truck crashes can be more severe than a regular crash, but they're also equally severe as a regular horrific crash that we've seen.
But Sagi, if someone is hit by a truck in a construction zone, what evidence should be collected right away to protect their case?
Immediately, you need to preserve as much evidence as possible. So let's start with, a lot of times nowadays, you're seeing that construction companies have video on the construction site. So we want to get that preserved right away. If there's cameras, if it's on a highway or a roadway, or there's a neighboring gas station or convenience store, or any type of facility or home that has video cameras, you want to preserve that. If the trucking company or anyone has dash cam from any witness, you want to preserve that. A lot of times we hear of the electronic data recorder, and you hear that what's called the black box. You've seen that on planes, and then they can tell us what happened in the last couple of minutes before the plane went down. The same thing happens in cars and trucks. So trucks also have that electronic data recorder, the black box they call it. They have that in those trucks. So if there's a truck wreck, you want to get the data recorder downloaded. And there's companies that do that. Your lawyer's not going to do that themselves, I mean, unless they're an engineer and dealt with it. But most of the time you hire a specialist, because as a lawyer, you don't want to become a witness to the case. You want to be the lawyer for the case. And so you hire the companies to do the download, and the download will tell you how fast they were going at the time of impact. Did they have their lights on? How hard did they push the brakes? There's so much data that goes into these. So if there's multiple cars involved, you want to try to get the EDR download from every car. We have a case right now against a major trucking company. And they're telling us, hey, we're accepting responsibility. You don't need to take our download. You don't need to get our dash cam. Oh yeah, we do.
We want it.
We want to know exactly how fast were you going. Yeah, you're accepting responsibility because something happened. And how fast was your driver going? What were they doing? And we've had cases where we got the internal dash cam. So there's a dash cam that faces outward that can see in front of you, but the internal one faces against the driver.
Wow.
And we were able to see that, some drivers, they're on the phone. We had one we just resolved where the driver was on the phone, completely not paying attention to the roadway when they were making turns. The one hand was on the phone, one hand on the steering wheel. We had
Sheesh.
another situation where one guy's falling asleep, and you can see it. They're falling asleep, and then they're falling asleep. Boom, they wake up, and the crash occurs. So you want to get the EDR, download the smart cams, the dash cams in the front of the truck, on the interior of the cab. If there's witnesses, you want to get witness statements, the worker statements, police reports. You want to see, sometimes the government has cameras on the roadways. We want to get those cameras. Every piece of evidence, the earlier you can get out there, the better, especially if it's what they call a disputed liability case. You, the lawyer, get out there, and with your experts, with your photographer, with your videographer. Don't do it yourself. Get experts. They take better pictures. They continue, and you can tell them what to look for and what to take pictures of. But sometimes they see things that you didn't see. So you want someone else continuously taking pictures and preserving really everything you can about that site.
So what should victims do if several parties are denying this responsibility after a construction zone crash?
Yeah, so what I would tell the victims to do is hire a lawyer that knows what they're doing. And sometimes you'll see, a lot of times there's lawyers that bark and don't bite, meaning they're like desk adjusters. They sit behind their desk. They haven't seen the courtroom. They don't try cases. This is something that you really need to evaluate when you're hiring a lawyer, because it will make a difference on the value of your case. The wrong lawyer or an inexperienced lawyer can really, you think you're getting a good result, but if you went to someone who really knows what they're doing, they can 10x the result. I've seen it all the time, because you have the trucking companies blaming the construction site, or the city blaming the driver, or the contractor blaming the truck, or the truck blaming the construction site. They didn't have proper signage. So who do you sue? Who's going to be more responsible? You may have to sue all of them and let them fight each other, and then we have to hire experts. So if you don't go at it alone, if you're doing this and you're an individual, hire an attorney that can help you. And if you're not sure who the right attorney is, and if it's in a different state, call me and I'll find you the right lawyer. I can help you. I'm here to help people. And remember, when you get one of these cases, or you happen to be in these cases, evidence disappears fast, which means you got to get to that site. If you're not getting to that site, you might be missing a crucial piece of evidence or a witness statement that could have made a difference in your case. We have one right now, a construction site accident involving one of these big trucks. And thankfully, we got to the scene right away. In the pictures we took, you can see that there was no camera or warning as these trucks go onto the roadway. No camera, no mirror to let them know if there's cars coming or not. So they're just blindly going onto the roadway while you and I are driving, thinking everything's going to be fine. No one expects a truck just to jump right in front of us. It was poor planning. In that case, if we don't settle, we'll go to trial, but they're done for it if they go to trial on that case. So what I would say is hire someone who knows what they're doing, a board certified civil trial lawyer who's had the experience and knows what they're doing and has litigated these cases before.
Well, they got to see Sagi, you know what I mean?
There you go.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you all for listening to today's episode of Road to Recovery, Advocacy and Insights for Trucking Accidents. If you or a loved one has been injured in a construction zone crash involving a truck, visit shakedlaw.com to learn more about the Shaked Law Firm that can help protect your rights. Don't forget to leave a review, and share this episode with someone else that might need it as well. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.